You send a message. Then you put your phone down. 5 minutes pass. No reply. And suddenly your brain starts asking questions. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset with me? Why aren't they replying? One small uncertainty turns into an entire story inside your head. And the worst part? You know you're overthinking, but you can't seem to stop. What if I told you there is a simple 10-second technique that can interrupt that loop before it takes over?
Overthinking usually doesn't begin with 10 thoughts. It begins with one. Maybe you made a mistake at work. Maybe someone gave you a strange look. Maybe you have an important decision to make. Or maybe you're waiting for an answer you can't control. At first, the thought seems harmless. What if something goes wrong? Then your brain tries to answer it. What if it does? And then another question appears. How would I fix it? Then another. What if I can't? And before you realize what's happening, you're no longer thinking about the original problem. You're thinking about dozens of possible problems that haven't even happened. Here's the strange thing about your brain. It doesn't like uncertainty. When you don't know what is going to happen, your brain naturally tries to predict what comes next. That's useful when you're actually solving a problem. But sometimes your brain keeps predicting long after there is anything useful left to solve. It starts creating possibilities, then analyzing those possibilities, then analyzing your analysis, and suddenly you're stuck. Your brain thinks it's helping, but instead of finding an answer, it's generating more questions. Imagine you have an interview tomorrow. You prepare for it, you know your answers, you have your clothes ready. Everything is under control. Then you lie in bed, and one thought appears. What if I mess up? You imagine forgetting an answer. Then you imagine the interviewer judging you. Then you imagine not getting the job. Then you start thinking about what that would mean. Now you're thinking about your future career because of a hypothetical mistake that hasn't happened. And here's where the loop becomes powerful. Every thought feels like something you need to solve, so you keep thinking. Because somewhere in your mind, you believe, if I think about this enough, I'll finally feel certain. But certainty never comes, so you keep going. This is the part most people miss. Overthinking can feel like productivity. You're sitting there, thinking, analyzing, comparing, planning, replaying. It feels like you're doing something. But ask yourself one question. Am I actually solving the problem right now? If the answer is no, you may not be problem solving anymore. You may simply be repeating the same uncertainty in different forms. And that's why telling yourself, just stop thinking, usually isn't enough. Because the problem isn't that you're thinking. The problem is that your brain has entered a loop. And when you're inside the loop, you need something that interrupts the pattern. This is where the 10-second technique comes in. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, don't immediately try to solve the thought. Instead, pause for 10 seconds. Take one slow breath and ask yourself, what do I actually know right now? Not what you fear, not what you imagine, not what could happen. What do you actually know? That's the entire shift, because overthinking often mixes facts with predictions. And when those two become mixed together, your predictions start feeling like facts. Let's go back to that unanswered message. You might think they're ignoring me, but what do you actually know? You sent a message, they haven't replied yet. That's it. Everything after that is interpretation. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they haven't seen it. Maybe they're thinking about what to say. Maybe they simply don't want to respond. You don't know yet, and that's uncomfortable. But uncertainty doesn't automatically mean something is wrong. Sometimes you simply don't have enough information yet, and you don't need to create an answer just because your brain wants one. The power of this technique isn't that it magically makes your thoughts disappear. It does something more useful. It creates distance. Instead of being completely inside the thought, you start observing the thought. There's a difference between something bad is going to happen and my brain is imagining that something bad might happen. The first one feels like reality. The second one reminds you that it's a prediction. And once you recognize the difference, you don't have to follow every thought your brain produces. You can use this whenever you notice your mind looping, before an important conversation, after sending a message, while making a difficult decision, when replaying something embarrassing, when worrying about the future, or when you're lying in bed and your brain suddenly decides to solve every problem you've ever had. Pause, breathe, and ask, what do I actually know right now? If there's something you can do, do it. If there's nothing you can do, you don't need to keep mentally working on it.
The goal isn't to never overthink again. That's unrealistic.
Your brain will always create predictions. It will always ask questions. It will always imagine possibilities. That's part of being human. The skill is learning to recognize the moment when useful thinking becomes repetitive thinking. Because thinking can help you solve a problem, but overthinking can keep you trapped inside one. And sometimes the most productive thing you can do is stop trying to find an answer you don't have yet. So the next time your thoughts start running in circles, give yourself 10 seconds. Pause, breathe, and ask, what do I actually know right now? You don't have to control every thought your brain creates. You just have to decide which thoughts deserve your attention. And sometimes that's enough to break the loop.